Welcome to episode 6 of the Dialed and Driven Hockey Mentality Podcast. Chris Palmer, mental performance coach for hockey players. Jeff Lerg, goalie coach, amazing athlete, pro athlete. We both work all around this hockey world in the United States, North America, Canada, into Europe, and everything we do is to try to help people figure out how to get their big dream in hockey. And each week we're showing what we know and what we've seen in the people we've worked with and in our own lives, things that actually work to make a difference. And today we're going to talk about, specifically in this season, peaking for the championships. Peaking for playoffs, peaking for the championships, it's so hard on people because we put so much pressure on ourselves and it's so easy to forget who we are. What we're going to talk about today is how can we do actionable things to help us have the best performances here. Jeff, tell us anything.
Yeah, first off, Chris, this is the part of not being a player that I miss the most. It's that time of year when all the past success or all the past failures really don't mean anything. If you're in the dance to compete for a championship, anything is possible. And as a youth player and a junior player into college and pro, I've been on both sides of that, as many players that play for a long time have. And there's the glory of a favored team winning it all or an underdog finding a way to upset people. And then there's that ultimate defeat of that favored team who in a one-game stint just goes down and doesn't play their best or runs into a hot goalie. And so we want to discuss all the elements of that and how we can prepare to be successful in whichever situation you're in, whether you're on the best team or the worst team. Anyone can win in the playoffs.
Well, we talked earlier about this really, really important concept. You told me that when you look at guys playing, one of the biggest things is they forget who they are. So one of the biggest takeaways right now is remembering who you are, remembering the high points of your season. Can you tell us some about that? Like, why is that so important when you're going into that nervous, doubt, fear, worry crap going into these championships?
I'll speak to when I was a youth athlete, midget level. I was playing for the Honey Bake program. We're the number one team in the country. We were fully loaded with talented players who many of them went on to play Division I and pro. And it was state semifinals. Again, we were favored along the way. We were favored to win nationals. And it was just a one-game sleepy morning in Marquette, Michigan, 8 a.m. game. The opposing goalie played really well. I probably played average. We lost 3-2. And just like that, my youth playing days were over. At that time, there was no at-large bid for nationals. To everyone's core, we all believed we were going to win nationals. But just like that, things can change. And that's the exciting part of playoffs is anything can happen. It doesn't matter what took place the previous 7 or 8 months. It can come down to one game, one morning, one shot, one shift. Anything can change the course of the game.
But you mentioned specifically to get past that kind of thing, it's remembering who the hell you are, remembering the high points of your season, remembering when you were successful. I mean, there it was all over. But going into that game, can you remember things that you thought of or remember things that guys you've worked with have thought of to help them remember who they are and how strong they are and how capable they are to help them bring that into those championship games?
I was a goalie. I remembered a lot of these kind of weird nuances, and I was kind of paying attention to a lot of things. But I remember early morning team bus ride to the rink. It was very quiet and kind of solemn atmosphere. Like we didn't seem to have that level of intensity and jump that we normally should have going into a state semifinals and a one-game elimination. And I'm sure that the other team, when you're the underdog, you peg that opponent, and that's all you're thinking about. You probably can't even sleep the night before. You're so excited to get the opportunity to upset them. And I'm sure their energy outmatched ours. Their goaltender outplayed me. And just like that, our season and hopes of a national championship were crushed. And that's what makes it fun. And that team didn't even win the states. They didn't even go on and finish the job, but they knocked us out. And that, for me, at that point in my life, was a really good learning lesson because I used that failure to help set myself up for future success. But at the time, of course, it really stung. It really hurt.
It really brings up this really interesting concept in sports psychology about belief in who you are. And I think belief in who you are and this defining who you are, it's the sum total of kind of your genetic leanings, but it's also the sum total of the things you've experienced. If the world shows you over and over you're a piece of crap, that's an influence. If people are telling you you're a piece of crap, that's an influence. If you're failing on the ice, that's an influence. But by the same token, when you succeed on the ice and you see that, you remind yourself who you are, that makes a big difference. It helps build your belief. Same thing with coaches and other people believing in you. It's so hard when you get under the pressure of these big games to forget all of that, to think somehow it's this giant mountain. But we talked about this thing before we started recording today. It's so interesting how, in the end, remembering that everybody's the same is a giant calming thing, because everybody is the same. These guys are all going to bed the same way. They're all going to the bathroom the same way. They're all getting dressed the same way. They have worries, doubts, fears, problems going on in their life socially. Maybe they have a girlfriend, boyfriend that broke up, whatever the thing is. There's all these stresses people have. They all have the same stuff. There's no amazing miracle behavior out there. In the end, everybody has the same doubts and fears. So I think going into these games, really realizing that everybody has the same stuff. Nobody's in this lucky category. That's really one of the strongest things. Remember, this is something that's hard for everybody, and getting past means remembering who you are.
And I think specifically hockey and goaltenders specifically can change the whole course of a game. And we were speaking with Natalie, our producer, before. She was giving us some memories. As a 14-year-old, she won the state championship as the underdog team. And she was reading us her record against the opponent throughout the course of the year. And it was loss after loss after loss. And team didn't score many goals. And then lo and behold, she gets a shutout. They win the state championship. So all it takes in many sports could be the pitcher in baseball, the quarterback in football, the goaltender in hockey. Those individualized sports, they can get hot at the right time. So if you don't remember that they can outperform you, they are human. They can have their best day on your average day or their worst day on your best. All those situations can occur. So you have to go back and realize that, hey, everyone's human here. Nothing in sports is automatic. The only guarantee in sports is nothing is automatic or given.
It's interesting you talk about that happening. That's really just an energy shift, right? That kind of thing, just the leadership from the goalie, but it could be the leadership from a forward or the leadership from a coach. It could be the leadership from somebody who knows they're not even going to play that day. They're the backup goalie or the second backup goalie. Whatever it is, bringing energy changes everything. I remember the F-bomb video with McDavid over the course of the Stanley Cup. They were losing. They felt like everything was falling apart. But it isn't amazing after that F-bomb video where he lost his mind. And he said, hey, just one more game. Let's see what we do. One more game. And sure enough, one more game made a big difference. The energy shift was incredible. And all of a sudden, these guys go on this complete change in how things went. It was great. I think it goes to your point that the goalie has the chance to be the leader. The defender has the chance to be the leader. Leadership can come from anywhere, and it changes the entire feel of the game.
And I've had the position multiple times from my playing days where, as the favored team to win, that pressure kind of succumbed our team and probably me specifically. When I played in Omaha in the USHL, 2 years in a row we finished first place in the league standings. 2 years in a row, we were a first-round knockout. And I played for the Toledo Walleye when we were a first-place team in the whole league. First-place team, favored again to win it. This is when I'm 30 years old, and at the time, I was continuing to play only for one more championship. We had won as a team in 2007 at Michigan State. I was 20 years old. I kept playing all the way through the minors because I was just chasing that feeling of one more championship. So I was playing for this team in Toledo, previously mentioned, went from worst to first. My second year there, again, we were a top-ranked team. In the first round, we got outmatched against a team, but I remember the feeling of my focus became, I just want to win a championship for this city. The city of Toledo hasn't won a championship in a handful of years. The passion of those fans, the storybook that this franchise has become from worst to first and highly competitive. And we went to a game 7, and I think my energy and my focus for sure was just based on, we just got to find a way to win. Anything we can do to win a championship for this city is the only thing I really want to accomplish as a professional playing. When in reality, my focus should have just been on doing my job, taking care of the small goals, 5 minutes at a time, going back to that flowed state that made me successful all year long to get our team into the first place position.
You bring up such a great point. I see this all the time, and I understand this. I think that when you want to win something so bad, that's great, but what you're saying is, I want a result. And it's great you want a result. And how many locker rooms have we heard the coach saying, this is a must-win game. It's a must-win game. I've said it myself before. And I understand setting the stage for that. But it's also setting the stage for potential failure because it takes the focus away from doing your job and puts the focus on a result. And if I say I want to win a state championship, that doesn't tell me how the hell to do that. And if I want to actually win it, I have to find a way to do my job exactly the way I've trained to do it thousands and thousands of times. And that's the only thing anybody can do. So it brings up this concept that I try to get across to people, and that's that every game is the same. Every game is the same. Every other game. And if you think a game is different for some reason, then you've taken your focus away from doing the things that actually allows you to win. You took the focus away from doing the things that actually freaking matter. And when it comes down to it, let's say I'm going against you in whatever that is. You're a better athlete than I am. But if I want to win against you and I'm focused on the fact that you might be better than me, I've distracted myself. If I'm focusing on a championship, I'm distracting myself. When it comes down to it, if I give every single thing I have and do every single thing I know, and I do my damn job over and over, which is the only thing anybody can do. I don't care if it's Game 7 of the Stanley Cup, doing your job is your best chance of succeeding. You focus on that, everything changes.
And Chris, I want to mention some of the failures I've had that helped me achieve success. Something that we've referenced a handful of times, 2007 in Michigan State, our national championship. I had to go through this process. I had to go through this readjusting or refocusing process prior to the national tournament. And what I did to be successful was that I looked back at my most successful portion of the season and I kind of got my mind back into what was I doing well. Let's focus on doing those three things. And for me, that was using my flexibility, my competitive nature, my aggressiveness, kind of having this mindset of I'm going to take the play to them. They're not going to take the play to me. And I kind of built this MO that I'm in control of my destiny, because prior to that national tournament, we had a playoff series, as all sports do. They have the league playoffs going in prior to the national tournament. I let up 11 goals in 2 games leading into the NCAA tournament. So I let up 5 one game, 6 another. We obviously lost that last game. So I was not hot at all. I was basically ice cold. I had to reset going into this national tournament and kind of reestablish my belief system. And I remember distinctly going back to the kind of the middle part of the year when I was goalie of the month in the month of January. And I kind of got in my mind, get myself back to that state. What was I doing? Who did I play against? What type of saves was I making? And then I realigned my focus into taking care of the basics and kind of readjusted my mind into, hey, I can do anything. I've already beat top teams. I've already beat University of Michigan this year. I've already beat the other top teams. I can go in and I can beat anyone. And then over the course of those next 4 games, it was 5 goals against in a 4-game span. And it was a complete reset, mind shift. But that's what you have to do going into these 1-game and eliminations in the playoffs. You got to find that best part of your season and put yourself there mentally.
It's so hard to do that because there's so much distraction. You've got crowds who are screaming. You've got people who all around you want good things for you, but they're saying things like, hey, try to get these goals, or try to have less than 2 goals against today, whatever it is. You've got these pressures that come from outside, but they're always about results. It's if you get this, then you can get this. If you do this, you can get this. And it's also results oriented. It's so hard to keep away from the purity of this. Couple quick examples. I'll let you know that Hadley Hudak really, he looks like an NHL guy, big giant guy. He just got a D1 deal recently. But it wasn't a fun trip. He played all the way through 18s till he aged out. He played all the way through juniors till he aged out. And it's a lot of work to try to get on the map and make things work. And for him, he had a really, really hard time one season because, man, it's just like, it's not working. And by the way, he allows me to share these stories with people because he wants to help people. But it wasn't working and it was frustrating. And he eventually got back to this point in his game where he stopped worrying about the D1 commitment. He stopped worrying about the result, and he just went out and played. And it was awesome. And he had fun. And he just went for it. And he did the things he knew. And he was amazing. He had a hat trick. Crazy. And then he gets calls from UConn. He gets calls from Michigan. He gets calls from Lake State. It's amazing how just one change in the shift, one change in your focus can change everything. And you see it with kids all the time. You see it with kids in youth hockey. These guys are going out there and a couple of things go bad on the ice and it's over. It's over. I suck. I'm awful. I'm terrible. I'm a piece of crap. I'm letting my coach down, letting my team down. This is the stuff people spin and tell me in their heads all the time. But it's not just here. It's goalies in Europe. It's goalies in Sweden, goalies in Czech Republic, goalies in Canada. It's guys who are trying to get from tier 2 to tier 1. Everybody has this thing where it's so easy to just think you're screwing up. But in the end, the only way to calm yourself down is just be where your breath is, take a breath, find a way to focus on the things you know. Remember these good things that you've done. Remember your capabilities and go do your damn job.
And I think that emotional energy that these 1-game eliminations bring, I think when you combine that mental aspect of do my job, take care of the small goals, and then you elevate your emotional state of just wanting it more than your opponent, that's really really the secret sauce to success in the playoff hockey. You can see it from a team perspective. If you watch college or pro hockey, you watch the first 5 minutes of a game and you see a team that's dumping the puck, forechecking, finishing every check, creating turnovers, and their energy levels through the roof. Generally speaking, that team will have more success. That first 5 minutes, who wants it more? And I found myself as a goalie, if we were outmanned and our team was kind of getting outplayed, I had to rise up to keep my team alive in order to get ourselves back to kind of an equal state of a game. So a lot of it's that energy and it's that will over skill. Like that team might have finished higher than us in the standings, but we want it more. And that's what makes everything exciting. Who can one up the other? The individual battles need to be won on both sides. And that's why we play the sport of hockey. Like it's a team game, but it's also just so individualized. If you got to want it more than the person looking across from you.
If you remember the Lightning a few years back, they were amazing. They actually, I think, tied the win record, the NHL win record. They tied it for in-season. Incredible. They look like they're just going to blow through everybody. And what happens in the playoffs? Swept in 4 games. Swept. Incredible. Guys like Kucherov, just incredible guys who somehow just fell apart and they couldn't pull it together for 4 games. And I think if that can happen to them, if there's a movie called Any Given Sunday, which is all about the fact that everybody's great, who wants it more, who can be more dialed, who can be more driven, who can figure out what they want. And it's so easy to get stuck. For me on my side, I'm going to bring in the runner thing, only because I was a psycho guy who knows a little bit about the mental side because I ran 75, 90 miles a week. At Nationals, one of the things in distance running, I ran 10K. I was All-American. I was 4th in the country, and I was behind 8 seconds behind 3 Olympians. I was not an Olympian, by the way, but I was behind 3 Olympians who did pretty good. But in that race, you had to be really focused to not get caught up in the whole national championship thing. It was freezing cold, 30 degrees, hilly in southern Indiana, and everybody went out fast, just gone. And my coach lost his mind because I was in 60th place at the mile. But I was doing my job. My job was to run 450 a mile, 450 a mile, 450 a mile. And I just grinded that out. And it was hard for me because I saw everybody gone, but they were making a mistake. It's a 6-mile race. As my coach used to say, they don't give the awards out at the mile mark. So I'm out there busting my ass, but it was really hard. My coach going, you got to go. And it's like, no, I'm doing my job. And I kept going and grind up. And all through those next 5 miles, I got up to 4th place. But it's so hard in those moments, no matter what the sport is, just to keep your mind. So just as a summary, just so we have something useful for everybody. And honestly, I don't care if it's a guy going into the playoffs in the NHL, guys going into the state run we have coming up here, or even just something you're working on that matters to you, a game that's important. To kind of summarize for today, 1, remember the high points of your season and remember who the hell you are, because you have succeeded and you just remind yourself of all of that and take all that into your games. 2, remember, people are just people. These are guys who put their pants on the same way as you every day, the same doubts, fears, worries. Their moms hug them. They worry about their families all the same way. They're not gods. You have every right to go give everything you can, and you can take down lots of people. And the final thing is, every single time you play, try to push away anything that distracts you from doing your job, because doing your job is the only thing that gets championships. Busting your ass is the only thing that gets championships. Fighting with every single thing you have to the death is the only thing that gets championships. And that's really the summary. So is there anything else you want to add today that might be useful, Jeff, or as you kind of take us out at the end of the podcast here that people can use?
Yeah, awesome analogy awesome story with the running and the 450 a mile, because for me as a goaltender, that's how I applied my game in order to be successful when I was in that flowed state of finding success in playoffs. It was take care of the first 5 minutes. If I get through the first 5, reset my goal to take care of the next 5 minutes, and then reset the goal to take care of the next 5. And before you know it, the successful first period was there. And that was something taught to me by the great coaches I had, was just take care of that game incrementally, and then the big picture will take care of itself. And if you can keep your energy and focus there, along with all the other teaching points and stories we kind of talked to get our point across, you're going to give yourself a chance to have a high level of success in the playoffs, because nothing's given in sports, and especially during playoff season. So to all our listeners, thanks again for listening. Remember to stay dialed, to stay driven on your goals. That's the only way to accomplish success in sports. And please remember to share, like, and comment on our podcast. We're also on Apple Podcasts as well, in addition to Spotify, Amazon Music, and YouTube. We love putting the time and energy in, so appreciate any shares and likes that you can give. Thanks again. We'll chat next week.
Jeff Lerg! One of the best saves you will ever see. Keeps this game alive.
Chris Palmer again, the Hockey Mentality Podcast, Dialed and Driven.